when we look at the United States national budget right now, the federal budget, there's $3.2 billion dedicated to our national defense. That overwhelmingly dwarfs whatever else we send money to. Now, my questioning here is, as a future taxpayer, do I want to fund my military to go to Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan to shoot people up and create more terrorists than we're killing over oil, or do I want to send them somewhere to a man who's been kidnapping kids for over 20 years? I would personally rather send them to somebody who's trying to kill kids, okay? Now, I do know that this is a big issue that has a lot of problems that has to do with, the people of whether or not it's a moral issue. However, there's one thing I do believe in, and that's America does have a voice. It's called the Vox Populi. With this video, the Kony video of 2012 has officially been indicted as the video that has been the most viral video ever, okay? That's people looking at this video and understanding what's going on. There's people calling out, and there's people giving rise to the government and saying this is what needs to happen. What I'm seeing here is this is another civil rights issue. This is another women's rights issue that's going on right now. I'm seeing the people calling for action, and I see the government not delivering. I say that we interfere monetarily, not militarily, yet. I say we interfere monetarily because we can, even though there is problems with the Ugandan army, there's problems with the American army. We were screwing with Iraqi prisoners of war. There was a scandal over that in 2003, but they're not. Every army is going to have its issue, and you're going to have people that don't know how to handle themselves. I'm just saying we should interfere monetarily because just because there are bigger issues in the world doesn't make it any less wrong of an issue.
Aram, I love your figures, but unfortunately you kind of messed up on the US budget figures because the budget for the military is $600 billion, not $3.2 billion. Because if it was $3.2 billion, we wouldn't have schools like this, we would have shacks. The real point I was going to point out was, even if we throw money at the problem, it's not going to solve it. Unless we give literally the LRA, or rather the Ugandan army, I'm sorry, not the LRA, the Ugandan army, all of our resources militarily, which means that we're basically going to intervene, directly. They're not going to do anything, because if we think that we can throw money and advisors at them, do you honestly think that they have the resources and capability to do so even with our advice? Military advice goes so far. And also, let's hypothetically say that we do directly intervene militarily. What happens to all those soldiers, the child soldiers who are liberated now? Where do they go? Anybody have a solution? Because I honestly do not know where I'm going to put a bunch of misplaced soldiers who are now recently liberated. And also, right after the conflict, how are we going to deal with all the refugees that come out? Refugees is actually one of the largest problems in Africa because of all the conflicts within there. And not to mention that if we do intervene militarily, let's just parallel it to the invasion in Iraq or Afghanistan. We went in, shot Saddam Hussein, well, we didn't shoot him, we captured him and then hung him in an Iraqi court. But the thing is the same concept. We basically killed off the leader. So what happens next? We're still occupying Iraq, so I'm very sure that if we, walk in, cap Kony in the ass, that'll work really well.
Katya?
Okay, you said what happens to the kids who are out of the LRA. One of the biggest things that Invisible Children raised money for and funded or whatever was rehabilitation centers, schools, which in fact Santiago had one of the programs called Schools for Schools, and we funded one school in Uganda, Sacred Heart, I believe it was? Yeah, so we helped fund one of the schools there. They have rehabilitation centers, so all the kids who escape and get out of the LRA, they go to these centers to be able to have a future, to not be psychologically messed up in the head. And you said, what happens to Kony? Do we just go and kill him or whatever? Well, that is what Invisible Children keep saying that they don't want to do. They want to capture him and not kill him, so the other people around the world who are leaders know that we can get them too and stop them as well. So we don't want to kill him, and we don't want to. What now?
Well, we could have done it with Saddam Hussein.
I feel you. Thank you, Pastor.
I also want to address how you said that, what do you do with all the liberated children? I'd rather have, them ended there than, their kids.
Respect the speaker, sit down.
Thank you.
Guys. I don't want their, would you want their children be just like them. So like how like now, if we stop Kony, and like we just like all the kids like they're gone, right? Like, they're not allowed to make more child armies. If we stop them, yeah, they're gonna be crazy. They're gonna be like they're not gonna be good people anymore. With the rehab, it might help them. And if we stop them, there won't be as many more to come afterwards.
Aaron, you brought up the point that you'd rather have money going towards finding children and liberating them and all that as opposed to the war on oil. Well, the footage from the Kony 2012 video was shot in 2003. It didn't become famous because 2 months ago they found oil in Uganda, and now magically it needs all this attention on Kony. Also, Kony's current location is unknown, except we know he's no longer operating in Uganda. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. The LRA's army is fewer than 500. The number of child soldiers in Uganda has dropped 80% in the last 5 years without American intervention. For some reason, every time America intervenes in a situation, everything goes to shit. Okay, everything goes downhill. So, if everything's already progressing at such a great rate, raised child soldiers down 80%, the LRA army's down under 500, why do we need to intervene now? Because of the oil that was found 2 months ago. That's it.
Okay, I know that Zishan said that we're not going to make this about whether the Invisible Children organization is credible or not. Unfortunately, you can't really have an argument about the Invisible War without acknowledging the fact that a lot of the attention that's been brought to it recently has been done by Invisible Children. Invisible Children has been accused of altering facts, as well as there are estimates as high as 80% of their funds do not go to helping children at all. They go to paying their staff members. Not even the ones that are necessarily out on the road telling stories, just the ones that are in the office building writing up reports. And yes, they do ignore the inhumanity done by the Ugandan authorities.
Is this relevant at all to our resolution?
Yes, I'm getting to it.
I want to see it.
They do ignore the atrocities done by the Ugandan and Sudan governments. Kony hasn't been seen in Uganda for 8 years. As far as we know, he's dead. The only reason that we don't say he's dead is because we haven't found the body. He has not been seen or heard from in 8 years, other than the attacks, not even perpetrated technically by him, but by people under him. So as far as we know, someone could have taken his place forever ago. As well as really going in to stop Kony just proves that America in and of itself has what's called a Messiah complex. And a Messiah complex is essentially the belief, I need to save the world. I need to save everybody in the world. Obviously you can see where that comes from. The US economy, yes, it is in the toilet. Also, we've had a reputation since pretty much back when we bombed Japan, of being the bullies who just did whatever they wanted militarily and didn't really have anyone to answer to. Now that reputation has started going away, but we still have it. Do we really want to get involved in just another war that we do not need to fight, except for oil? Yes, there are inhumanities committed by Kony, but the same is true of the Ugandan government. How can we say we're going to support one person who does the exact same thing as another person?
First of all non-profit organizations have to have some funding to the presidents and all that stuff to make what they do happen. And most of the Invisible Children comes from college-age dropout students who have an internship which is non-paid, and they go all around America in vans, and they bring this story to everyone. And as far as the 80% goes, there's a chart of them getting audited, and here's where their money goes. Only 12% goes to management, so obviously that's wrong. And then, as far as Kony goes, not being seen or heard of in 8 and 7 years, he's been filmed, there's been peace talks in the past 5 years, 3 years. He's released statements, and there's been sightings of him, so that is also wrong.
Having a film release doesn't really prove anything. I can shoot a film now, like 100 years ago. 100 years later, someone finds it and it says, you know, it was only done 30 years ago, does that mean that I was actually alive 30 years from 100 years from now, so 70 years from now? No, that doesn't mean it. Might I be alive then? Yes. Now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm alive. It just means someone finally released a video of me at some point and says it's from a specified amount of time ago. Doesn't mean it's true.
To address your point about him not being alive, 8 years or whatever, we didn't actually know if Osama bin Laden was alive for quite a while. We didn't actually, we didn't even recognize how long, or we didn't realize how long he was alive, or whether he was alive or dead at all, until we found him and killed him. So that idea that we haven't heard from a person is not a necessity that they are dead. And also in the whole charity issue where you're saying that Invisible Children sends barely any money to direct aid in Africa, well, they do aid. They actually, they do help actually. If you want to look at another, prestigious charity, Oxfam, not all 100% of their proceedings go to Africa because there has to be, or any place that they're helping, because there has to be, managerial things they have to organize. And also, most charities, if not all charities, in America are run as a business. Therefore, most of them run at least a small amount of profit, otherwise it would collapse and the charity wouldn't even exist. So by saying that just because Invisible Children doesn't donate all of their proceedings to a specific cause or to their cause, it does not necessitate they're an invalid or not legitimate charity. It just means that they don't have the large amount of resources compared to other charities and that they're still working at it.
Okay, so Elton, I heard your point. And while I do think that there are a lot of parts of the Invisible Children organization that are very good, I support our school's Invisible Children Foundation all the way. I think that they do an excellent job, whatever they're doing, whether it be a benefit show, car wash, these people are always trying to raise money. I don't care what they have to do, they're asking me for pennies or anything counts. And they're always on me, which is really good in any organization. If you're persistent, then you're gonna get help. The problem is, and I'm not necessarily against the entirety of its organization, but I went and I looked at the finance reports from Invisible Children, and the organization makes $8 million every year. Of that, 32% of it goes to actual clothing for African children. It goes to schooling, products, books, shoes, everything that helps. There's an additional 30% or 40% that goes to awareness programs. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen an Invisible Children t-shirt outside of Santiago, and I've never seen one that our Santiago students haven't made. I've never seen a hat. I've never seen a bracelet. I've never been tried to offer one. Now, you're saying that this organization is using $2 million to make shirts, hats, pins, bracelets, everything. But I've never seen one of these products before, ever in my life. And it's not only that, you can ask anybody else that you know. Unless they've been in direct involvement with an organization inside of Santiago, most of the time they've never ever seen one of these things. Then another $1 million goes to management and general, which obviously I expect, because like you said, some groups need money in order to keep themselves going. There's no such thing as an entire nonprofit organization. Every organization is going to need money to help their group keep going. My question is, where is that going? Because I looked on the actual website of Invisible Children and they said, look, we have nothing to hide. And I said, that's great. They provided their finance reports. Nothing looks shady. But they provide smaller circles for everything. They say, okay, $2 million goes to awareness. This is exactly what we're spending on awareness. $2 million goes to African children. This is exactly what we're giving African children. We give $1 million to management, but we don't put what management is for. We don't put what general is for. That's way too much money going under the radar to say, well, they're probably doing it for good cause. Another thing, on Invisible Children and a lot of people with it, I don't know if you guys know this, but everybody that I know is saying, help the Ugandan government. Help Uganda find Kony. That's not the case, okay? Yoweri Museveni, who's the actual leader in Uganda right now, is a dictator. The way that he got to power in Uganda was child soldiers, okay? And he's actually changed the name of his army. He's also currently trying to get a bill passed right now in the Ugandan government that says if you're a homosexual, you'll be put to death, okay? This is the type of man that we're dealing with, and people are saying, give all of your money to Uganda. Go and help Uganda. That's not what's going to happen. And I, for one, am not going to send 100 U.S. Troops to go in and try and find somebody that we don't even know is in Africa and have them face the LRA if it's still there and have them have to kill kids. I know way too many soldiers that have post-traumatic stress syndrome from killing adults. You imagine what that's going to do when they have to look down their barrel, okay, and shoot at an 8-year-old kid who's trying to kill them. You have to kill them. There's no, oh, maybe we can save the children in Africa. If they have a gun pointed at you, all they've been taught, and it's not their fault, but all they've been taught is to kill on sight. So I'm not going to ask, 100 American troops. If the U.S. wants to send in Navy SEAL Team 6, go kick some ass that way, okay, I support that. But I do not support helping the Ugandan government. I think that's an asinine idea, since you're basically saying, use a dictator that used child soldiers to get another dictator that uses child soldiers. And, who's when he hates the gays? I mean, come on, we don't like anybody who hates the gays, guys. And, you know what I mean? I'm not going to tell 100 U.S. troops, go kill children, guys. That's not what our American army was, based on. We're not trying to kill kids. We're trying to do things efficiently and save as many lives as possible, okay? If we send in a bunch of troops, not only are you going to have American soldiers that are killed, American soldiers that are traumatized, will probably most likely commit suicide when they come back from Africa, but you're going to be killing all the kids that you guys want to save anyways.